Hey guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, we will be talking about orchid root rot. This is a constant problem which any orchid enthusiast will deal with eventually. The good news is that with proper culture, it can be prevented pretty reliably. And even if it does occur, it can be relatively simple to save the afflicted orchid. In this video, we will discuss how to recognize orchid root rot, what causes orchid root rot, how to prevent orchid root rot, and how to save your orchids from root rot. I hope this video is useful to you. If you like it, please thumbs up and share with more friends. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. We will have more free and helpful videos in the future. What are the symptoms of orchid root rot? Unfortunately, the symptoms of root rot are often very similar to those of underwatering. They include shriveled stems and leaves, yellowing, and leaves being dropped. If these symptoms happen and you are pretty sure that you are not underwatering your orchids probably have root rot. There are also some unique signs to look for. Black traveling up the stem or pseudobulb usually indicates that the rot has traveled from the roots into the rhizome and must be cut out. If you can see the roots themselves, the rotted ones will be soft and will often have a brown or black color. Healthy roots are hard, they don't feel hollow. What causes orchid root rot? There are three main causes. In the end, root rot is a result of poor culture. No culture will be perfect, so you will almost always deal with some degree of it. The important thing is to keep an eye out for it. Address it when it arises and avoid those conditions which cause it. While the causes can often vary in their impact depending on the kind of orchid, there are a couple of things which should always be avoided. The first is waterlogged media. Orchids are usually grown in an airy substrate, not in soil. But some of these substrates can break down, losing their ability to dry out quickly and becoming soggy and overly acidic. This is a recipe for root rot, and there are only three ways to deal with it. The first is to repot regularly if you are using media which can decompose, like bark or sphagnum. The second is to use fully inorganic media like charcoal, lava rock, perlite, or granite. The third is to mount the orchid, which will all but eliminate any potting media. While these latter options will mitigate the risk of root rot, the plants will require more frequent watering and higher humidity. The next contributing factor is subpar watering practice. Overwatering can lead the media to break down too quickly. You can extend the life of organic potting media by avoiding overwatering your plants. It is also very important to avoid letting such orchids sit in standing water. Fill the bottom of your pots with a layer of gravel, and do not let water stand in the bottoms of your pots. But most of all, it is important to not allow your orchids to be wet and cold at the same time. There are some orchids which can stand cool fall weather, orchids like cymbidium and some dendrobium, but they should be kept more dry during these rest periods. The combination of moisture and cold is a recipe for rot, not only in the roots but even stem or crown rot. This is why it is best to water in the morning. The plants will be moist as the day is warming up, and as the sun sets and the nighttime coolness starts to set in, they will have dried out a bit. If you water in the evening, the orchids will face that nocturnal coolness sopping wet. The final factor is most common in an enclosed space, an improper humidity to air movement ratio. Orchids love humidity. This is well known and it is very true. But if the air is humid and stagnant, your orchids will rot to pieces. If you increase the humidity, get a big fan or several, and ensure that the air is constantly moving in all sections of your growing space. Oscillating fans are best for this as they can cover a larger area. What should we do to prevent root rot? First, remove all roots when repotting. Some orchids, like ones in the Cattleya or Catasetum aliens, will lose their all roots when disturbed. Because of this, whenever I repot these orchids, I remove almost all of the all roots, leaving only the last year's growth. I have noticed that the all roots will just rot in the new potting mix if I didn't remove them, accelerating its rate of decay. Second, give your pots good drainage. I put larger gravel in the bottom. This stops any of the media which can decay from sitting in water at the bottom of the pot. Third, if your orchid is in a plastic pot, poke holes in it. This will create airflow inside the pot instead of allowing wet, stagnant air to build up. Fourth, in large pots, make the middle of the pot have more inorganic matter in the mix, as this area holds moisture the longest. This will allow the pot to dry more evenly. Some people will even use packing peanuts for this purpose. How to deal with existing root rot? If you do notice root rot, it is best to repot the orchid just as new roots are emerging on the new growth. Try to use less organic media this time, or decrease the watering frequency, or put the plant closer to a fan. Possibly all three. If you see rot in the rhizome or stem, cut it out with sterilized secators and seal the wound with silicone before repotting. Here, I want to share my preferred method to stop root rot. Grow orchids on bark or in a wooden basket. This is our lovely Cattleya Morning Glory. Unfortunately, it has a bad case of rot. You can see where it has worked its way up the rhizome, killing pseudobulb after pseudobulb. They shrivel up until they are brown and desiccated. They have each started out in the same state that this leaf is in right now. Streaks of yellow and brown until the leaf falls up. Then the pseudobulb shrivels. After pulling it out, you can see how all of these roots have rotted, and the new roots are starting to push out of the new growth. I repotted this one before I noticed that Cattleya orchids tend to let their all roots die, and I didn't cut them off. The roots festered and acted as an entry point for the rot that killed the pseudobulbs. We are going to cut right where the most recent pseudobulb has started dying. Once the orchid has been severed, check the cut. Look for brown or black spots in the green flesh or a purple ring. Luckily, we don't see any, so we know that we cut at the right spot. We need to separate the two halves, then clean up the dead roots so that only the new ones remain. Here is the old one. Even the good pseudobulbs are shriveled and the roots are all dead. You don't lose much, and you had to cut this off to save the rest of it. Even the good part has some bad roots. We are going to untangle them, pull off the decayed roots, and remove the all decayed medium. You have to be careful not to injure the new roots while you pull off the old ones. When in doubt, fill them. Dead, rotted roots will be squishy and hollow, not firm. Eventually, I was forced to use my secators, sterilizing them with a cotton ball soaked in isopropyl alcohol before each cut. This is our second time dealing with rot problems with this orchid. For this reason, we're going to mount it to avoid a third incident. Once the orchid is cleaned up, we're going to place it in our teak basket. We want it to stand still, so we will attach the wire hangers, then tie the remaining pseudobulbs to the hangers to hold it securely. We will slide some rocks, bark, and wine corks under the remaining roots. Wine corks are excellent for mounted orchids as the roots will grip them, but they will not rot. This orchid will be sprayed with water every other day in the winter and every day in the summer. It will hang in the air where rot will be much less common. Just a little bit later, the wound has sealed up and a new growth is emerging. Further on, you can see for yourself how well it is doing now. It has lots of new roots and new shoots and no sign of rot. For orchids growing in the air like this one, they need higher humidity and more watering. Our humidity is around 60%, and we water this orchid almost every day. Alright, this is today's video. I hope it helps you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching and see you next time.